How to fix secure boot invalid signature detected error. Welcome back to Teknobalta. Today, our team is tackling a frustrating motherboard boot issue that entirely halts your system startup. We analyzed the specific error message, stating that an invalid signature is detected, prompting you to check the secure boot policy in setup. This typically occurs exactly when Windows UEFI mode is selected within the secure boot parameters. At Teknobalta, we tested this extensively to provide a comprehensive, step-by-step resolution to get your system booting perfectly again. Step 1. Identifying the core setup error. Our team investigated this boot failure and found it often triggers on systems running hardware like the 5600X processor. The system information clearly indicates that the BIOS mode is operating in UEFI, yet the signature error persists. We confirmed that even when the BIOS version is completely up to date, this specific policy error can still block your Windows boot process. Step 2. Entering the UEFI BIOS utility. To begin the repair process, restart your computer and repeatedly press the dedicated BIOS key. This action will bypass the initial splash screen and boot directly into the motherboard firmware interface. We recommend entering the advanced mode to gain full control over the necessary security parameters and boot policies. Step 3. Navigating to the security and boot menus. Once inside the advanced mode, navigate to the boot tab located at the top of the interface screen. Scroll down through the available options until you locate the specific secure boot submenu. This is the centralized area where the operating system verification processes are managed and configured by the motherboard. Step 4. Analyzing the OS type configuration. Inside the Secure Boot menu, check your current operating system type selection. The error specifically manifests when this setting is configured to Windows UEFI mode. While this is the correct setting for modern Windows installations, underlying cryptographic issues can cause the verification validation to fail. Step 5. Diagnosing the signature corruption. Teknobalta's analysis showed that this boot interruption is often caused by a problem with the digital signature from the last installation. When the hardware configuration changes or a new operating system is applied, the stored security credentials can become severely desynchronized. The motherboard essentially fails to recognize the trusted status of your bootloader. Step 6. Executing the primary solution. Through our testing, we verified that the absolute best way to fix this is by resetting the secure boot keys. This action forces the motherboard to discard the corrupted verification data and establish a fresh security baseline. It is a highly effective procedure that directly addresses the invalid signature warning at a firmware level. Step 7. Clearing the platform key data. To perform the reset, navigate to the Key Management section within the Secure Boot configuration menu. Select the option to clear secure boot keys or specifically delete the existing platform key. Acknowledging this prompt will temporarily disable secure boot by placing the system into a neutral setup state. Step 8. Restoring default factory keys. Immediately after clearing the old data, you must install the default secure boot keys. Look for the option labeled Install Default Secure Boot Keys or Restore Factory Keys within the same key management menu. Confirm the action to allow the motherboard to load its built-in, trusted cryptographic signatures into memory. Step 9. Confirming the key reset success. Once you restore the factory keys, the system state should automatically change from setup mode back to user mode. We confirmed that this key reset process directly resolves the signature issue generated during the previous installation. The motherboard is now completely prepped to securely recognize your Windows bootloader without throwing any policy errors. Step 10. Verifying the BIOS boot mode. Before exiting the configuration screen, double-check your overarching system settings. Ensure that your fundamental BIOS mode remains strictly set to UEFI. Using older legacy modes will prevent secure boot from functioning and can trigger entirely different startup failures. Step 11. Disabling Compatibility Support Module. Navigate back to the main boot menu and locate the Compatibility Support Module configuration. Set the Launch CSM option to Disabled completely. This guarantees that the system will not attempt to fall back on older, incompatible boot protocols that conflict with your newly restored security keys. Step 12. Checking Trusted Computing Settings. For optimal modern operating system compatibility, we also advise checking your trusted computing parameters. Ensure that the hardware-firmware TPM configuration is fully enabled for your specific processor platform. This works hand-in-hand with Secure Boot to satisfy strict operating system security requirements. Step 13. Saving changes and restarting. With all cryptographic keys restored and configurations verified, navigate to the Exit menu on the top bar. Select Save Changes and reset to prompt a full system reboot. Confirm the dialog box to apply the new security policies directly to the motherboard firmware. Step 14. Monitoring the boot sequence. As the computer restarts, monitor the initial boot sequence very closely. With the Secure Boot keys successfully reset, the motherboard will now validate the Windows UEFI mode without triggering the invalid signature detection. The system should effortlessly bypass the previously problematic setup check and proceed directly to the Windows loading screen. Step 15. Verifying Secure Boot in Windows. Once you reach the Windows desktop environment, open your System Information utility. Locate the Secure Boot State entry in the provided hardware summary pane. It should now accurately display as on, confirming that the protective firmware feature is fully operational and the initial error is permanently resolved. Step 16. Final Stability Confirmation. Our team confirmed that this procedure permanently stabilizes the boot process for systems facing this specific policy error. Even on older motherboards like the Asus Prime B350 Plus, updating the keys ensures smooth operation with modern hardware components. Your system is now fully secure, correctly validated, and ready for continuous uninterrupted use. Don't forget to follow Teknobalta for more.